Every big idea in the marketing world should go through two major phases, the why and the how. First, new idea or concept emerges, everyone's talking about why it's so important. But once people are on board and it becomes part of the zeitgeist, the conversation really needs to shift from the why to the how. The only problem is that a lot of marketing trends right now are getting stuck in the why stage, but today we're going to talk about one of them and try to shift into the how. Let's do it. You're listening to the Content Head Podcast with me, Joe Michalowski. In each episode, I'll talk through one concept you should know if you want to build a sustainable content engine for your B2B tech company. Listen in for lessons on how small, scrappy marketing teams can use content to drive more pipeline and revenue. Thanks for joining me to nerd out about all things content strategy. Let's get into it. A little while back, my buddy Harris Spahich, sorry if I butchered your last name, he posted something on LinkedIn that stood out to me. Nothing new there. Harris, been posting great stuff for months. Congrats on the new Butterdocs gig, by the way. Harris, great job, man. But anyway, Harris wrote something about a trendy new calling in marketing that's starting to lose meaning. And so it's this big call for everyone to make content with subject matter experts. And sounds great, right? Not many people would disagree with this idea. It makes sense to build out your content program based on unique insights from subject matter experts that are in the audience that you are trying to go after. The why of this trend, we've busted straight through it. Like talking about why you should do this has become a moot point. Even me, I have episodes before this one about why you need to do this. And Harris and I even chatted about it one time. It was like candy bar content, episode 1 of this thing. It was like the why of doing a podcast, doing a video series, trying to get subject matter experts involved in what you're doing. But something that stood out to me was Harris saying there just aren't many people talking about the how of including subject matter experts in your content. Like everybody says to do it, but not many people are talking about how. Harris gave some ideas of his own, and I wanted to, in an effort to support Harris's idea, give my contributions to the topic. This is what I spend a lot of time doing, not just for me, not just for my past role in-house, but now for a lot of different clients at New North, trying to get them on board with this idea and figuring out how to do it for them. And so if you're like Harris and you're sitting there saying, I get it, I should talk to subject matter experts, I should get the right people into my content stream. Like I get it. I know exactly what I'm supposed to do, but are you actually going to teach me how to do it? And I'm going to try to do that over the next little bit. So I've got 4 strategies that I think work for getting subject matter experts involved in your content. And they work for different people. So I'll go through what it is. And then when I'm done explaining what the strategy is, I'll explain like who it might be good for. And so number 1, we're going to talk about working with the founder connections. This was a huge part of my early playbook at Mosaic. I was there when the company was probably about 20 employees. The co-founder, my whole time there actually, was the leader of the marketing team. And so when he wanted to start doing a podcast, we leaned heavily on his network, the CEO's network. We had founders who had worked in the exact target audience that we were going after. They were former seniors of finance. I think somebody had a CFO title at one point in B2B SaaS startups. We were in need of content for B2B SaaS startups. They had friends, they had themselves, they had people at the company who were in the seat that we needed to speak to. And so with Joe and Beej at the forefront of it at the beginning, basically just mining them for investors, friends, former colleagues, potential customers, early customers. Anyone was fair game, and they were incentivized to give us a starting point, not just for our show, but for our content engine in general. And obviously, like that situation in Mosaic, early stage startup, traditional VC backed, a lot of founders in that situation will have been in the seat before. It's basically like the path that you go through. I was in the seat, I saw a problem, I decided to start a company and move up that way. And so they'll probably have a lot of connections. And even if they aren't formerly in the seat that you were targeting, just the nature of the game in VC-backed startup world means that they have investors, they have conversations all day with the right people that you would want to have in your content. And they are incentivized to help you get the go-to-market motion off the ground. So I think it's good for those situations. It's also good for anyone that just has access to folks with a network of people in your target audience. So Even if you're not VC backed, I have a client who's like a 30-year MSP. So they do IT services. So they've been working with people for 30 years on IT services. They know people in the industry. They just have a big network. And so we can tap into that. And so if you know anyone in your company, if you have one yourself, great. But as in a marketing seat, you probably don't. So go to the people that have it, working the founder connections. Best strategy off the bat. It's worked really well for me. It can work for just about anyone. But if you don't have somebody with that network, we need to move on to another strategy. So number 2, be best friends with your sales and customer success teams. So I think the next step down from finding like the founder friendlies to be part of your content would be the folks in your business who are already in touch with the target audience. Use your podcast or your video series or whatever it is you're doing that needs subject matter experts. Use that as a way to engage with people that your sales and CS team care about. So on the sales side, this is perfect if you've got a whole SDR team on the outbound side. Their whole job is just reaching out to people cold and trying to get them to engage. Your content series, whatever it may be, if we're reaching out to the subject matter experts, your content series is an awesome step in the door. Instead of reaching out and constantly hammering people to get time on the calendar for a demo, instead of reaching out and just saying, check out this piece of content that I found, they can reach out and they can say, hey, we run this podcast. We talk to people in your position. Think you really know what you're talking about and would love to feature you on the show. Come to talk to, our hosts, and no sales pitch, no anything. It's just, hey, I know you're a great person that people would love to learn from in this field, and come hang out for 30 minutes, an hour, and talk about how you handle certain situations that the rest of your industry would care about. It's worked really well for me as well. On the CS side, so if you have customer success team that manages client accounts, again, this is like, I know this is a very SaaS term, but anyone who just has the ownership over your customer accounts, this is just a great way to build goodwill. Usually I'll hear, and I've talked about this before, but I hear people say, oh, I don't want to bother our customers. I don't want to ask them for too much. We already asked them for a case study. I get all that. But if you just get into a steady cadence of talking to your CS team, maybe like once a month, go to them and say, hey, who would be good candidates? Not for a case study. Maybe we're not ready for a case study. Maybe there are newer customers who they're still in implementation or onboarding. But if you have that constant conversation, you can go in and you can say, hey, who would be good? These people are talking all the time, all day. Like they have a good idea of who is open, who just loves chatting. It's great. Send them my way. I would love to feature them. It'll show them that we care about them without having to give them. We're not asking for a case study. We're not asking them to make claims about how great our company is. We're just asking them to come share their expertise. I found that it makes people feel pretty good. So works for me. So who is this for? So this works when you, like, maybe your company is getting a little too big for you to get FaceTime with the founders or executives, like the people that have that direct network. Like my founders were always really great at Mosaic. So thank you, Joe and Beige. But I'd imagine as companies get bigger and bigger, it gets harder to get those connections from them. They're busy. They want you to go handle it. And so now if you have a big outbound team, if you have a CS team, like those are like on par with marketing departments in terms of you can just easily reach out to them. There's probably enough of them that if you get 1 or 2 people from each one, like you're set for quite a while. But this applies to anyone that owns any kind of customer or prospect relationship in your organization, just a really good touch point. But yeah, those are 2 strategies. Let's go on to the third one. It's not really a strategy. It's just ask people. It seems really obvious, but I am serious. Working agency side now, I spend a lot of time pitching clients on the value of having some kind of pillar content program, like a podcast, like video series. And one of the biggest like pieces of feedback or like the biggest pushback that I get is like, why would anyone want to come on this show? Why would anyone want to come talk to me about something? Like they don't see how it benefits them. And the truth is that in many cases, people will be flattered that you would even want to include them in something like this, especially lesser known folks. Like you're probably not going to land whoever the biggest influencer in your industry is just by saying, want to come on my podcast and hoping for the best, especially if it's new. If you're just like out of the blue, you're like, would love to have you on. It's pretty clear. Like you're just chasing them for their clout. Like you want them to promote your podcast. So especially with just like regular folks in the industry, regular subject matter experts who are really smart, but maybe don't have a huge following already. They might just be happy to chat with you. I know I've been in that situation before. I am not a big personality by any means, but if somebody asks me if I want to go chat, I am always for it. So how do you do this effectively? One, you need a really good backlog of topics that you want to cover on the show. You cannot go into this conversation just totally blind. But you want to be really targeted in your outreach. This is not a time for just what's my templated message and I send it to everybody under the sun. Reference something that the person has said or posted recently or something that has gone on in their world. Tell them that you would love to chat about that thing on the show. Say, hey, here's an idea I had, but I have other topics that I'd love to cover too. Maybe give like a quick 3 to 5 bullet breakdown. We could talk about X, Y, and Z. We could talk about this question. We could talk about this. Would love to have you on, talk about these things. What do you think? You won't get everybody, but you'll land more than you think. And you don't know until you try. So it's not a crazy strategy, but that networking effect it works. It just does. Who is this for? This is for especially an SME host. So if you are a subject matter expert hosting your show, it is natural for you to go build a network of your own in the space. You're not just a marketer or salesperson looking to like pitch slap someone. Like you're not just connecting and getting the classic, like, I'd love to connect. Hey, by the way, I have this product. Do you want to buy it? An SME, if they're the host, they have the title, the background to build trust immediately, and they can empathize with the person in cold outreach, their problems very deeply. It also works for the marketer host. So like I was a marketer hosting a podcast for finance people, obviously not an SME by any means. But if you act like a journalist in that seat, so you go in, you really put time into understanding who you're talking to and like put good topics and questions together, you just distance yourself from the product and company. It's, yeah, clearly it says I work at Mosaic, but I would love to have you on. I would love to chat. Here's all the things I would love to chat about. Again, you won't get everybody, but you'll land more than you think. And if you just keep a steady cadence, like you'll have plenty to fill in whatever SME needs you need. So number 4, last one, the ABM touch point. This is something that at New North we've had a lot of success with. Basically building out an ABM campaign with an initial touch point of just, hey, come on our show. Full ABM breakdown is maybe for another episode. But in many cases, we're running like one to few or one to many ABM campaigns. So it's like a numbers game. We're building big lists, 500, 1,000, 1,500 people, whatever it is, sometimes smaller, but something in that range. It's not a one-to-one effort. And we're building out awareness emails. So these are our cold emails often. And just starting with, hey, just want to get a foot in the door. And a lot of times that's content based. And then as they click, as they engage, move into an engagement email that is more sales focused. But in those first runs of emails, we want to just offer value. And I think a really great way, and something we've just seen a lot of success with just booking guests in general, is using that first sequence to say, hey, like, here's a piece of content. Hey, have you ever thought of sharing your story? Have you ever thought of jumping on a show to talk about topics like X, Y, and Z? We'd love to have you. Here's a scheduling link. If you go in with that plan, like it's just a really, again, good foot in the door. And this is more at scale than anything that I've talked about so far. So you have to go into this plan knowing that you'll get a lot of people completely ignoring you or just saying no. Like you might get one reply in a week and just says, please take me off your list. That's fine. I get it. It's cold outreach. It's the name of the game. Don't go into it thinking that the only worthwhile guests for your show or your expert content needs are the ones with big social followings or big logos. If someone has smart things to say about big problems in your industry, they are worth talking to. And it makes this ABM thing really work because, again, it's a numbers game. So who's this for? I think this is for the masses. So if you don't fit into any of the buckets that I just mentioned, if for whatever reason, no founder connections, no network of your own to leverage, no sales and CS org, asking directly, I don't know, you put some time into it, it hasn't worked out that well, you want something more scaled, I think you can go with this. Like you can have someone build you a list and off you go. Again, need some help building out the tech side. That is not what this podcast is for, but if you need help, come to New North. But again, like bigger organizations where marketing may not have buy-in from the other folks, may not have the buy-in from the execs. They may not see the value of doing this like expert content series or whatever. Maybe you just have tough time sourcing guests or subject matter experts like within your organization or in your immediate circle. So it's something you can run entirely on your own. You can build lists, you can build email sequences, and off you go, trying to get some guests. So that's a really good one for people that just need a little extra push because they don't have that network involved. So those are 4 ways. Those are 4 ways to do the how of getting subject matter experts involved in your content. I want to wrap things up like I usually do with just some like key nuggets, takeaways. First one, give people a little bit of credit. I mentioned this before. Just people enjoy sharing their expertise, and they'll be thrilled in many cases that you even asked them to be involved. They're not wondering what's in it for them all the time. Like maybe that's in the back of their head, but it's not like you don't need to make this like just a love fest for their career to make it worth their while. Again, give them credit for wanting to share their expertise. You're starting a podcast or a show in this space. You're trying to get experts in this space, presumably to create content for these people. They're going to care about it. Not all of them, but many of them will. Dig deep into a topic that the audience cares about. They'll enjoy it better than if you just said, hey, come share your story about how great your career has been. That's something I really believe. I think you should embrace that. Again, got to embrace rejection too. It'll happen, but that's okay. Reiterating something I just mentioned, don't limit your pool of potential SMEs, subject matter experts, because of their follower count. Your end goal isn't to just have that person post about your company or your show. That is a nice byproduct, the promotion bit. But your goal is really to create something that your audience will enjoy and care about. Don't look at them as a number, as a way to get visibility. Look at them as a way to share really important, valuable insight. And yes, if you share them the assets after, you get some promotion out of it too, which is great. And then the last nugget I'll leave you with is just thinking about the guest pitching process like a self-sustaining engine. You get early guests by making specific asks to targeted people in a small circle. When you put real effort into that, coming up with your topics, building out the requests, the better your topics are, the better your outreach emails will be. The better your outreach emails are, the more people you'll get on your show. And the more people on your show, the more momentum you will build. And so the easier it becomes to expand that circle and get more guests. So I think really putting in that time up front to know what your topics are, to make them really valuable for the audience, the better your emails will be and the better you will get at getting guests as you move down into your later stages of content creation. So that is all I have for you today. I hope this makes sense. Harris, I hope I did you proud. This really was my attempt to get to the how of getting subject matter experts involved in your content. Good luck, y'all. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Content Head Podcast. One thing before you go, I'd love to hear your thoughts about today's topic. Send a note to contentheadshow@gmail.com and let me know what's on your mind. And if you liked the episode, be sure to follow Content Head wherever you listen to your podcasts. I'll see you on the next one.